Hey guys, this is Neon, and I'm here again with Geeky Sparkles.
You had to think for a minute.
Geeky Sparkles, and we're going to do another video talking about comics and fandom and all of this craziness. Now, I do want to, again, tell you that the intention is not to turn this channel into a Comicsgate channel or anything like that, but there is a lot to talk about that is in relation to not only comics but other fandoms, and we're going to talk about that. And I also want to give an apology. I had a couple people in the last video complaining that I accidentally ruined Infinity War for them, and I am really sorry about that. I wasn't thinking. It's been out for a few weeks. I just kind of assumed everybody had already seen it, and I went back to actually add an annotation to the video, and they won't let you do that anymore on YouTube, so I had no way to like warn you ahead of time. But if we do have a big spoiler like that for something recent, I will try to, or you can just hit me. Geeky Sparkles will just hit me and be like, "Shut up!"
Well, basically, he doesn't think a lot, so
I just got ranting, and I didn't really think about it. So I do apologize to those of you.
We had a point. We were trying to make
We were trying to make a point, and if you see the movie, then come back and watch.
His point is more important than you seeing that movie.
Come back and watch the video, and then you can see that I'm right. Because this is all about being right, isn't it? That's what
apparently
all this is
that's
about.
all the internet is about being right.
That's about being right. So I don't even know where to go with this. So okay, I mean, we'll talk briefly about the situation with Jawbreakers. You know, again, it escalated even more, and now I guess Richard Myers actually filing complaints with various organizations against Mark Waid and possibly Marvel and possibly Disney. So you know, and it's not. I can't even follow. Like, so much is happening with this. I can't even follow.
Plus, I mean, I can't say who or what, but we know people that are close to the situation, and they've pretty much said that it did go down the way it's being portrayed.
Yeah, okay, so, you know,
we can't speak to it 100% because we were not there, but
no, I can't give you any.
We do know people that
yeah.
were around the situation.
Yeah, so I don't know where, you know, any of this is going to go, but apparently, you know, if he's filing a complaint, if it's going through a legal system, there's got to be some evidence that there's some shenanigans going on. I mean, regardless, you know, to have a comic pro like Mark Waid take it upon himself to basically police the entire comic book industry, that's just, God, that's nuts.
Why would you want the stress?
Why would you want the stress? Like, you know, it's like, don't you have anything better to do?
He's like, I need one more challenge in my life. I think I'll do this.
I'm gonna take it upon myself to police the entire comic book
But
industry.
I'm just like, well, I mean, he did an interview with Bleeding Cool.
Okay, that's what the point of this was, and it was the biggest puff piece I've ever.
Bleeding Cool's known for puff pieces. Here's the thing about Bleeding Cool. Everybody's like, oh, well, they're a trusted news source. They're a trusted news source. For years, people kind of like, you know, take it with a grain of salt because the people over there have been known to basically be like the Inquirer of comics news, and you know, it's whatever gets the most hits.
Okay, so this is what's kind of frustrating about this anyway. So they have this interview with Mark Waid. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably listen to other videos, and you probably have already heard this anyway. But the thing is Mark Waid has actually threatened Bleeding Cool in the past because I think he was going to punch one of their reporters in the face or something. He said he was going to punch Jude Terra in the face for saying something, and then he went off of social media for a while.
This isn't the first time he's gone dark.
Right. And
usually you don't go dark unless you're told to or something happened.
Right. And a lot of people are coming into Comicsgate, and they're kind of, you know, they weren't really that familiar with Bleeding Cool. Bleeding Cool has been around for a very long time. Rich Johnson used to write a column for, I think it was Comic Book Resources, called Lying in the Gutters. And of course, the implication being is that this was all like scuttlebutt hearsay. Some of it was true, some of it wasn't. You gotta figure it out. Johnson never refers to himself as a journalist because I think he knows he's kind of dubious in that regard. Comicsgate has been very, very good for business for Bleeding Cool. Like, Bleeding Cool, most of their articles don't get a lot of chatter, but the Comicsgate related articles, I mean, the comments like go through the roof. I've seen thousands and thousands of comments. You know, so part of me, the cynic in me in the back of my head is like, are they doing this just to get the page views?
Here's my thing.
You know? For
them, to me, as far as like being a news source, they always struck me as being like, if you're one of the extreme news sources that everybody says not to listen to in the media today, like the far left or the far right one, he'd be one of those. Like,
I don't,
you know,
I don't even know. Now I know his reporters take a strong stand when it comes to politics. Johnston, from everything I've read, like, I don't know if...
Well, I'm not saying political. I'm just saying, like, there's news sources they tell you are fake news.
Oh,
Don't
it's
listen
absolutely...
to them.
Bleeding Cool
And-
is the biggest rumor-mongering site on
until
the... I mean,
until it's the narrative you want to hear. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, Bleeding Cool said that.
They
Oh, well, you know.
Right,
and now,
they completely disregard...
it's our narrative. They're the most credible news source in America.
Oh my God, there were people in the comment section on this article that were like, thank you for your journalistic integrity, Rich Johnson. And I'm like...
those are not words I'd use together with that name.
But it's like, but then the comic book industry, like, collectively, just a year or two, like, they would shun Rich Johnson for being a rumor monger and a whatever. So again, yeah, it's like whoever the reputable journalist is the one who's telling you what you want to hear that's supporting your opinion. But anyway, so Mark Waid goes silent on social media. Again, that's a pretty good indicator that there's been...
Well, we're pretty sure that's an indicator.
Something said to him to make him, you know, go dark like that, because he'd be dancing in the end zone. Right. So he went dark. So something's definitely going on here. But you know, he's talking about how he's basically playing the good guy. Like, he's going in here like, well, this poor publisher, Antarctic Press.
Well, he said exactly. He's like, I called the publisher who I knew to be a good guy because I suspected there was more to this than, yes, sign me up and make money for the transphobe. I'm like, well, a couple things here. They came to him, didn't they? They approached Diversity in Comics, didn't they?
I'm not sure what happened. Yeah,
but it's like, so okay, this is what gets me. I'm sure the conversation was him enlightening him.
Well, here I'm gonna. Well, this is it. This is kind of how it's almost like. I mean, I hate to say it, but it almost comes across like the mob going to you and saying, "Hey, fam, since you know you're not aware, we don't do business with so and so or whatever, and just so you know, for your own. Gosh, it would be a real shame if it got out and Tony had to come over and pay a visit with a crowbar and a rusty pair of pliers, wouldn't it? Just, you know, but once I talked to him, he understood what I was actually saying to him. This is how it came across with Mark Waid. So he's like, I called, and again, we knew Mark. Like, I talked to Mark, and this is just like, you can't make this stuff up. So I called, this is Mark Waid. So I called the publisher, who I knew to be a good guy because I suspected there was more to this than, yes, sign me up to make money for the transphobe. And there was. He's a busy man who has a full-time day job as well as a publishing house, and he's not much for social media. So it never occurred to him to vet the creators. Again, what we said about the club.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure the Diversity comic guy even said to him, he's like, "Are you sure you want to publish this?"
Right. I think he said there's a lot of controversy, and they do publish other books that are controversial.
Yeah, controversy is something that suddenly the old man can't deal with.
So why would it occur to him to vet the creators? That's an honest mistake to make as a publisher myself. If I see work I like and want to publish it, it doesn't automatically occur to me to just, by the way, make sure the creator is a decent human being, but apparently it ought to. Lesson learned. I phoned him out of legitimate concern to warn him that there seemed to be a lot of anger directed at him by fans unhappy.
Which fans? The five that are on his side?
Yeah, there were a lot more people that were like giving him high fives. There seemed to be a lot of anger directed at him by fans unhappy that he'd so openly embraced someone whose entire reputation was based on harassment and preaching intolerance and bigotry.
Wait. Is he talking about the SJWs or is he talking about Diversity in Comics? Because I really can't tell at this point.
I can't tell anymore. Not warn him like, hey, if you know what's good for you, I'm just saying. Warn him as someone who has respect for him that he may not realize who he'd gotten in bed with.
Okay.
Now, oh God. Okay, so no, I think this is a personal opinion, but I think what probably happened was because Mark Waid does own comic shops.
But he wasn't the one in those little secret room with the retailers either. He was just suggesting in a friendly manner.
In a friendly manner
that it would really suck if you don't get comics anymore for your shop because you don't.
No, exactly. I honestly think that was what happened. I think he probably said, "Hey, it would really suck if I made the recommendation to all of my retailer friends to not carry any books by Antarctic Press."
Or it would really suck if to the retailers. It would really suck if you got out on social media that you're going to carry this bigot's book. Right. And we'll make sure. And it's just. It'd
really suck if we sent Tony.
The good guy here.
If we sent Tony to your shop with a crowbar and some
here's
rusty
what
pliers,
gets me.
That would really suck.
This whole thing that gets me with this whole thing is, I want to make sure he knew what kind of person this person was. If I had a friend and my friend said, "I hate all redheads" or something like that. I'm using redheads because
you really don't like redheads.
I don't. I am one. I hate myself.
Always like busting redheads
because I'm allowed to say it because I'm a redhead myself. That I hate all redheads and I wish that they would die. And
no.
And then I turned. I'm just saying. And then I turned around, and then I didn't like this person anymore because someone didn't like this person because they made that comment. And then they wanted to apply for a job, and I knew the person who owned the company, and I could do something. And I called the place ahead of time and said, as a friend, you just don't understand what you're getting into. You should not hire this person, even though they're qualified, because they don't like redheads, and they're bigots.
Yeah.
And then they go, I mean, you can't do that.
No, okay, so this is basically being, there's got to be something going on. If Richard Meyer actually filed, some legal papers filed against Mark Waid, I know he's got a lawyer. There's got to be some kind of smoking gun. I'm assuming that this is basically like an espionage type, like trying to compete, especially if Mark Waid is working for Marvel, which is owned by Disney. Now, even though he's a freelancer, he still has to file this paperwork.
There are guidelines, we know.
Right, you can't go to a competitor and give them information with the intention of tanking, their business or whatever. Because that's really unethical and possibly illegal.
The next thing is you went to tell him, I wanted to let him know what kind of person he was. I bet he failed to mention the parts about people he's defending. The parts they said they were going to hit all the cis white men in the face with a baseball bat.
I'm sure that was left out of the conversation.
Or the part where they said that they wished this guy that they signed would die, or he was killed. He was killed by an IED, or he was paralyzed. I think they forgot to mention all that. I'm sure he didn't. But I wanted to let sure he knew what kind of person this guy was. They failed to mention all the stuff that was going on. Then raises the question: who decides who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
Right, and that is the issue here, because everybody, like we said before, everybody thinks they're the good guy. And really what you have to look at in any situation like this is what is the motivation and where are the tactics being used?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, normally you would assume that, okay, this guy, he's a transphobe and he's harassing people. So let's look at this. You would assume, you would look at the ones who are being the bad guys. It's like, well, who's the one that's being oppressive? Which side is the one that's, making threats? Which side is the one that's trying to censor the other? Which side is the one that, is going out of the way to do underhanded things? Oh, wait! It's not the side you think it was!
No, the comic book, I mean, and again, this is just us kind of looking into it, but from where I'm sitting, the comic book industry has done more damage. I mean, they've got their people out there, and they're protecting people who have said things that are potentially illegal online. They're constantly calling for violence. They're calling for, they're
trying to trigger PSTD or PTSD.
Right, they're colluding and secret groups.
I want to ban the word colluding, okay?
I know, I'm so
tired of the word colluding.
You've been watching too much news.
I've been watching too much news.
You've been watching
colluding
too much
word
news.
of 2018. Collusion.
It's a coagulation.
It annoys me.
So you've got these people, and yeah, they're out there. I mean, I gotta tell you, when I first started looking into Comicsgate, I was like, God, that's horrible that all these Nazis are beating up on or verbally abusing these trans people and gay people and black people. God, what a bunch of horrible people! I'm gonna go
harassing them. How dare they?
Harassing them. I'm gonna go get my pitchfork and my torch, and I'm starting to look into them like, wait. Well, hold up one moment. This person who just happens to be trans is saying that they would like to hit cis white males, me, in the face with a ball bat. And this other one would like to, blow up all the Republicans. And this other one, this is, okay, wait a minute.
But then if you react to that, you're harassing us. There was a cartoon you just saw on Twitter, and it was so
It's
great.
all over Twitter now.
It's so great.
It's this woman is shoveling crap over a wall that says internet, and then people are flinging the crap back onto her, and she's crying.
No, the crap says opinions.
Opinions, right. And then they're flinging it back onto her, and she's screaming misogyny.
No, yeah, well, yeah. Or is it misogyny?
Harassment or misogyny,
and
yeah.
It's like, and that's what I'm saying. It's like...
It's kind of like, okay, when I was a kid, I got into a lot of fights. I got into a lot of fist fights. I'll admit it.
But now you're going to say, oh, this guy's combative. That's why he's on,
I haven't been in a fist fight in years. You're not going to find any police records with me being in a fist fight. But I did. I used to get into fights. And I had a fight one time. The very first fight I was in, actually, I punched a kid in the face.
But there's a reason.
There was a reason for it, right? And I actually did wind up losing that fight. But he punched me back. But I punched him in the face, so of course he punched me back, so it's kind of like, who's throwing the first punch here? And, really from just, again, the armchair view of this is, Richard Meyer started his channel. He was roasting comics. He was roasting individual creators. He was roasting creators, social media presences, which again are public. They put that stuff out there in public, kind of making fun of them. I think the channel got bigger than he expected it to, faster than he expected it to, and then the comic book industry took notice and they started flinging crap at him. And now you've just got this big crap flinging fest going on here.
Yeah, I mean, again, he does say things he shouldn't say, but he at least admits to it and says he's sorry.
Right, and there are times he's even admitted, I've seen videos where he's like, I might have to walk that back a little bit, I went a little too far with it, but then it's kind of hard to, like, be polite to people that are wishing you death, or making really weird comments about your children, which they have, or making up fake reporters.
Yeah,
to try.
They literally made up a fake. It was a straight white dude with kids. I'm not going to say his name because I'm not going to even throw that at somebody. Making up a fake reporter who's a feminist reporter, hiring voice actors to do her like YouTube channel. Yeah,
the fake journalist was Melissa Morg, who was actually writing for a comics fan or comics news site or website or whatever, and the people who work for that site are known to be enemies of Richard Meyer. So it's kind of like, I mean, this whole thing is just freaking weird. It's just a really
you can't make this stuff up. It's
like
a Scooby-Doo episode
so
gone wrong.
Bizarre. But yeah, this Melissa Morg person, and the story is still being perpetuated that, you know, she's writing about Comicsgate. She does not exist. It's been proven she doesn't exist.
I'm a real woman, and you know. No, I'm a voice actress. Tom's using his hand right now.
Yeah, I found her on Fiverr.
This episode's costing about $50. No.
Yeah, actually, if we keep going,
I'm a real person. I'm a real person. I'm a woman. I worked in comics, and I think a lot of this stuff is just bullshit.
It's getting to the point where, and I wish more women would speak. I mean, there are some women that I know, like Blake Northcott has spoken out against this, and there's some other women who have actually come forward. But it seems like, I think really what happens in a lot of this comes down to, people don't say anything because either they're afraid.
I think
they're afraid of harassment,
the biggest part
because
of
the comic book industry is sort of implying these like Gestapo techniques.
Yeah, or they're afraid of retribution.
Yeah, they're afraid of losing their jobs. Obviously, jobs in comics are hard to get. They're increasingly harder to get because
comics keep
as the comic book industry dies. Those jobs are getting harder and harder to get, so they know everybody knows everybody.
Hack, you can make more money working at McDonald's. I'm just
saying. Yeah, for the most part, unless you're like top Marvel DC artist, you're probably better off getting a day job someplace else and doing comics yourself. And we've talked about that, and we will talk about that again. But so people are afraid. They're afraid of losing whatever chance they have of working in the comic book industry. And I think with a lot of it's just like, you know, people don't really want to do the homework. They're just like, people are harassing gays and harassing trans people and harassing black people. That's awful. Yes, that is awful. If that's actually what was going on and it was really that black and white, that would be a terrible, terrible thing. If you had
black and white.
no pun intended. But no, if you actually had people that were out there that were actually just actively trolling creators just because of skin color or sexual orientation.
Yeah, they didn't say anything first to trigger it or something like that.
Right. But when those same creators are making the comments they're making, and it's not just like, hey, I would like to hit Richard Meyer in the head with a ball bat because Richard Meyer is saying crappy things about me. It's like, no, I would like to hit every white man with a baseball bat, you know, in the teeth. And this person continually is getting deals. They're getting picked up. They're being embraced and coddled by the industry.
And this I see this all the time in the book publishing industry too. You get somebody in there that's this like extremist person that you know, to hit a, you know, whatever demographic that, you know, they have to hit or check that box. They have this person. They will sell books, and the books won't sell. They will not earn out. The books will do crappy, and then somehow they get another book deal, and they won't let anybody else in. I'm sorry I'm yelling, but they won't let anybody else in. But then somehow, when they didn't sell the last time, that somehow warrants another book deal.
Well,
and yet another book deal.
Because it's the club. It's the club mentality. And
people that like money?
You know,
are they all
averse
to money?
They like enough money to live on. They don't...
No, I mean the publishers. You think if a book wasn't selling and they continued putting books out with this person that they don't sell, you'd be like, you know, I'm tired of losing money.
You would think, but I think a lot of times
I don't want to be accused of being a bigot.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really what it is. And, you know, we talked about Club Comics before. I know Diversity in Comics actually has made the comment several times that he thinks comics is a club.
We've called it Club Comics for years.
And we've been calling it Club Comics.
Like started.
Yeah, and it is. It absolutely is. a club. And I think they basically want to make enough money to just keep making comics so they don't have to go work retail.
Well, the creators, I'm talking about the people that own the companies and that I think that they want money.
For the most part, if we're talking graphic novel publishers, if we're talking, like I know Scholastic, the attitude there is basically like, yeah, we do graphic novels, but they're not really like huge sellers for us compared to like Harry Potter, but we do it anyway.
Which is, we'll have a podcast about that sometime, about the bestsellers list and that whole fiasco, but go ahead.
But usually graphic novels are a very small part of that publisher's overall publishing.
Right, I'm talking about like that, but I'm just saying, why waste your time and money on it?
Just to say you did it?
Because before, we'll just go there. Before, it used to be the New York Times bestsellers list allowed a separate category for graphic novels and things like that. Now, the problem with that was, it was kind of like allowing a handicap on something, like, we're going to have a race and we're going to give you an hour head start because, it wasn't comparing apples to apples. It was comparing apples to oranges to kumquats.
Well, this is a whole nother, and again, we keep saying this is another podcast. The New York Times bestseller list is a lie. Well, it's not really a lie. It's massaged data. They pull the data from only certain bookstores, and even then, even if they pull the raw data in, it has to be vetted by Times staff. So the sales that you're seeing, the ranking on the New York Times bestseller list, for the most part, it's not an actual representation of who sold the most books. It's who sold the most books in the channels we choose, and did we like this person or not.
And then when somebody learned that and on their own kind of cheated it to get themselves on the top of the bestsellers list, oh my gosh, the backlash from the same people was just through the roof, because how dare you? Because they didn't go through them.
They
can cheat, and that's fine.
Yeah, the publishers can't. And we'll go into this another. I mean, the publishers are basically gaming the New York Times bestseller list. They game awards. It's a promotional tool.
Oh, awards, that's a whole nother podcast, but that is a joke.
All of this is a promotional tool. The New York Times bestseller. So anyway, the New York Times dropped the graphic novel bestseller list.
Right.
And
as they should have.
My God, SJW Comics freaked out. They freaked out because that's what their goal was. Their goal was get a graphic novel deal, get your graphic novel in the New York Times bestseller list, get a movie deal, get out of comics and move on to something else.
The publishers you're referring to, like Scholastic and stuff, they only cared about them because they were always in the best
They could brag.
New York Times bestseller list. And like Greta Taugemeyer, who I'm not lumping her in with these people, I'm just saying.
No, I don't think she's.
I don't think she is either. She was always had like the top titles because it was Scholastic, and they were promoting these promotional books, book orders, book fairs, and all that stuff.
The publishers know which stores to buy from.
Right.
There are actually people who, for a job, like their actual job is to go buy books for publishers at certain stores to make sure they get on these bestseller lists.
Yes, and there's a couple books that were like starting at the beginning of this whole movement that they sold out of their whole first run. No, they didn't. Because we knew people who worked for that company, and the company went and bought the books.
Yes.
And then they ended up in places like Ollie's for
books,
like $1.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm not going to name the publisher. I'm not going to name, but there are
may or may not run with Bumber Ains.
But there are people out there who specialize in book promotion. It's a marketing tool. The lists are a marketing tool, and they basically, they go buy back their own copies to trick the New York Times into thinking. But the thing is, this is business as usual for publishing. And where they get upset, and we're seeing the same thing on a smaller level in comics, is when somebody comes in from the outside. It's okay if It's okay if the publishers cheat. It's okay if the agents cheat or the book promotion people cheat.
Buying a bunch of Twitter followers out of nowhere for somebody's accounts?
Yeah, because that's considered book promotion, right? It's promotion. There are people who actually specialize in promoting authors, and there are some dubious tactics used to do that. But anyway, this is business as usual. Like that's expected in the publishing industry. And it's the same with comics. There are people who actually specialize in promotion of comics and da-da-da-da-da. But when you have somebody come in from the outside who basically breaks the system, or they figure out the rules and they do either an end run around it, or they beat them at their own game, then there's a freak out session because they don't have the control they think they have.
And the person I think that did it was a prose book. I don't think
it was a young adult graphic novel, or not graphic. It wasn't graphic. It was a prose book.
But it knocked out a book from the top slot that was by somebody who was one of the minority groups, and they were having a fit because this girl was white.
Yes.
And they were having a cow, and how dare she do such a thing. But she did nothing but implement the tactics that they've been using for years.
They basically figured out how to game the system because the publishers all game the system.
They do.
And
everybody, they say, even tell you, if you're going to put a book out, save $10,000 back and buy your own books.
Right.
For, they tell you this.
Yes, exactly. They do. Or save $10,000 or save $5,000 and go buy yourself some Twitter followers. Go buy yourself some Facebook
likes. There's a reason why some of these accounts, and they are the accounts the people we've been talking about, went from having like a couple thousand to having like tens of thousands in a short amount of time for no reason.
Pro tip, okay? If you're dealing with quote-unquote SJW comic book people who are a quote-unquote big deal on Twitter, and they have this ridiculously high Twitter
but they don't have a lot of interaction.
But there's not a lot of...
Not percentage-wise to what the numbers are.
Right. Like, if they have like 100,000 Twitter followers and you're only seeing
like 600 retweets or something.
Yeah. Look for the connection to mainstream publishing, because I've seen a lot of these people who have publishing deals have these ridiculous Twitter follower accounts because the publisher wants to be able to promote them as a social media sensation. So they will corn feed their social media accounts to make them look like a much bigger deal than they actually are.
And then, then these people don't understand that they aren't the big deal. They think they are, and then they're like, "Well, I'm a big deal."
They start to believe their own hype.
Look at me.
Right.
I'm so
this is coming from people who have worked in and around the publishing industry. There are a lot of games they're playing. If you've never heard of this person and they're supposed to be some famous cartoonist and they just like popped up overnight with hundreds of or tens of thousands of Twitter followers or whatever, you're like, who the frick is this?
They probably have a book deal recently.
They probably got a book deal or something.
A lot of the people, I'm not going to name names, but a lot of the people involved in a lot of the crap, you can trace back to a lot of this stuff.
Publishing.
I'm just saying.
It's the same mindset. It's a game that's played to keep control of the media by certain groups of people with some kind, and I think sometimes it's political and sometimes it's just financial interest.
Everything can be bought online.
Everything.
I'm just gonna say.
That's the truth.
That's a whole podcast again. Yeah, we keep saying that. We
I know. Anyway,
but back to the point, which is who decides who's good and who's bad.
Right. So this was interesting. I don't really know a lot about this, but apparently, in addition to Comicsgate, there's like a Ponygate going on.
I guess the Sonic fandom had some issues.
In Sonic fandom? Okay.
Apparently. Our friend was telling us about it. Yeah, we have a friend who's a fan of My Little Pony.
Right. And he was filling us in on some things going on in their fandom right now as we were swapping stories about comics.
It happened a couple years ago. But yeah, I was telling him what was going on, and he was like, oh my gosh, I got a video for you to see. And I'm not going to go into the backstory of what it was all about. But this one quote sums up everything I've been saying. So, this one person, long and short of it, caused a big stink about something, got somebody else's stuff taken down. It was funny because they were complaining about the content when they themselves generate content that's similar, but that's a whole other story. But when you look at the About Me, it was hilarious. She's like, my views are feminist and liberal, but I keep an open mind. I don't believe in equality. I believe in justice. And that right there.
Yeah, it goes on though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't believe in equality. I believe in justice. If we
what?
are all treated as equal, people who require more attention and special care will be ignored and oppressed in some way. Equality is not the answer to oppression.
Yeah, well,
okay.
That's what I've been telling you. It's about revenge. It's not about equality. It's not about true equality or true diversity. It's about being the one who gets the cookie.
It's about, yeah, exactly. This is about, and this all ties together with Comicsgate, with them wanting to keep control, with the publishing industry wanting for them to keep control. Basically, it's pretending to be doing the right thing to take an advantage for yourself, to make sure you are.
Credit. At least she admitted it.
At least she admitted it, but that's kind of that is, well, I think you said she was younger, so she probably just didn't think to. But she's being transparent. And that's a scary thing, because I think that the biggest mistake people are making with any kind of like infiltration of these wacko people into their fandom is that they can be reasoned with. You assume they want the same thing that you do, and the reality is they sometimes they don't. Sometimes either they want to be in charge. Okay, even if they're saying that they want equality, they don't want equality, or they're perfectly content to just watch the whole thing burn down because there's no skin off their nose. With comics, we've said before, a lot of the people who are the instigators in this, quote unquote Comicsgate thing, they don't have any love of the comic book industry. They're there just to get their publishing deal, to move on to movies or TV. They're just passing through.
But you don't have to have a publishing deal for that, people, by the way.
No, you don't have to. But I'm just saying,
we've done stuff without it. So
what I'm saying is they are not concerned. And again, this is not true across the board, but it does seem that the people who are causing the most problems are sort of transient comic book creators. They're coming in, getting a lot of attention for themselves, racking up all kinds of social media followers who follow their platform.
Well, racking up. Are they real?
Are they real? They may or may not be real. And then they're moving on to other media. They're like locusts. They're basically coming in, using up the resources, okay, to get themselves ahead, to boost their social media, and then they're out of here. They don't care if the comic book industry is left in shambles.
Who we know for a fact had her account boosted. We know this for a fact.
Who has moved on to other media.
Yeah. This person deliberately would go around finding people who did nothing to her, men.
Yes.
Just to and I used to watch this, I'd be like, what? Just to go and attack them. Because something else they said to somebody else, it might, whether or not it's in context is irrelevant.
Yeah.
They would just attack them because they want to attack men, and then they get all these hits and likes about it because I'm showing them, who's a boss. I'm that, misogynist who wasn't even talking to her, and she would make sure that she learned them, and it's just like, what?
Yeah,
That has nothing to do with anything.
This is the same person I talked about in the previous podcast that I read an interview with her, and she admitted to never reading comic books. Like, she had no interest in comics. She got into it because she was doing like fan art on Tumblr, and then she got a job.
That Tumblr again.
Yeah, and then she got a job, and then what I'm saying is, like, a lot of these people, they don't have the same goal you have. If your goal is, I want to save my hobby, I want to save my industry, I want to save. You're assuming that they want the same thing, and I don't think that's always the case.
No, I mean it can be.
It can be. I'm not saying that there are, like, even people who are very, very far left, don't want that too. They just have a very different view of it. But when you're dealing with a lot of the people that are very, very, very far left, and they just seem like they're all about just destruction, they probably do not want the same thing that you want, and because to them it doesn't really matter, they'll just move on to something else.
Now people are going to be like, well, I thought you guys were in the middle. Why? Which we are. Why are you just going on and on about the one side today? Well, there's a reason, and the reason is because when you sit there and look at it, and I think people need to think about this on both sides, when somebody coming into this is looking at this, and they're going to be like, well, who do I defend? What do I do? They're going to look at things like, well, I'm going to defend the people who are being harassed. I'm going to defend the people who are being oppressed. Who's trying to censor the other side? That's who I'm going to fight them. Yeah. And when you come into it, you're going to be like thinking, okay, it's people that are like, okay, they're misogynist, the sexist, the bigots, all them. It's going to be them. And then it's like, wait, but it's not them. If you take everything out, take about whose side is who.
Take the labels off.
Take the labels off. Take who's right, left. Take it all off, and just put what's out there.
Behavior.
By the behavior, by the words, and insert anything else in there. Instead of saying straight white men, say Asian lesbian women or something. You know what I'm saying?
What?
No, I'm just saying. If you take that out and change something else, it's something that you'd be allowed to say.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's it. You have to look at actions and words and make.
Is that something you can say about any other group? If the answer is no, then it's bigotry, it's hate speech as well. And I think people coming into this, they're going to look at this and be like, okay, if you're actually legitimately looking into it, not just so and so told me. I can't tell you how many people we talk to that are like,
get that all like, oh my god, I don't even go onto his Twitter because oh my god,
I researched this and I can't believe the way those comic gators are acting. And I mean, yeah, and some people are acting bad on that side too. I mean, there are stories about people being bad. I'm not saying it was him so much, other people, but
I've heard some stories. I've heard stories. I mean.
But I'm saying, there is bad behavior on both sides. One side definitely is more extreme than the other. But what I'm saying is, if you're legitimately looking into this, then you would be scratching your head. Like, anybody looking into this, for sincerely looking into it, is going to see these posts and they're going to be like, wait a minute. They're not, they're going to be like, wait, maybe this isn't as cut and dry as I thought it was.
No, it's not as cut and dry. And that's where it gets really complicated because I do not condone harassment. I do not condone name calling. I do not condone threats of violence. I do not condone any of that kind of behavior. But it's really hard to make a case to blindly defend people who actually participate.
That's what I'm saying.
In that behavior,
and that's what's confusing
themselves.
Because people legitimately, especially people in the middle, are like, they don't like to see that kind of behavior either, and they want to go defend people and be like, because I'm one of the people, I used to get in fights too, not fist fights. I would be like, if I saw someone getting picked on or abused, I'd be the first one standing in front of them being like, oh hell no. And so for me, my instinct is like, well, if they're picking on people, I'm going to go fight for them. And then I go looking into it, and I'm like, wait. The good guys are the bad guys. The bad guys are good guys. What the flip is going on here? And and it's if you actually look into it, it's not what you think. Yeah,
it's not what it is. Really complicated. And the thing is, before we even said anything, like we were we've probably spent the last like 6-8 months looking into the situation from both sides. We know people on both sides. We're trying to get the full picture, and it's complicated. It really is. I mean, it's really, at this point in time, it's coming down to a battle over, free speech in media.
Yeah, censorship drew the line for a lot of people.
Yeah, like a lot of people were like, oh, well, those comic book professionals are being really crappy, but I don't want to side with, trolls and whatever.
Well, yeah, if you don't go with them, then they'll tell you if you aren't agreeing with us, then you're a misogynist. You're a misogynist, Neon. You are you're a racist, misogynist, bigoted, whatever, because you didn't agree with them. But meanwhile, they're spouting off racist, misogynist, bigoted hate speech as well.
Right.
But that's okay because it's on their side. It's the side of justice.
Right, and that's the thing. I cannot sympathize for someone, even if I sympathize for harassment against gay people or trans people or black people, whoever, if they're just minding their own business and they're being harassed.
I'll be the first one in there. Like, you better back off and leave them alone.
Abide by that. But when you're making comments that basically you want to hit people like me in the head with a baseball bat.
Well, they're allowed to say that because you're white.
How can I?
You're a male.
How can I defend you when I know you would love to hit me in the head with a baseball bat?
Even though I would back you up on being picked on, and then when you look into it, it's like that cartoon, constantly shoveling shit up over the wall, and then when people start throwing it back at them, being like, wait, you can't just say that. No, you're misogyny. It's hate speech. You're harassing me. And it's like, and it's
the same with that dude who was on the G.I. Joe book. Like, that guy made some really crappy comments about 9/11 in America. And yeah, it was too soon. You know what? 9/11 was a horrible tragedy. It will always be too soon to make jokes about 9/11. But he made some.
And that could have been a result.
He could have just apologized. If he had just apologized and said, like, hey,
they don't ever apologize.
I was angry. Yeah, they don't, because they don't. Yeah, they just don't.
They're
because
always right.
they're just. They are just. They are holier than thou.
Whatever they say is law.
If they had just apologized and said, you know what, I was really emotional that day. I'm a New Yorker. I was in New York when it happened. I really just kind of let my, I didn't think before I spoke. I'm sorry about that. But they double down on this, and then they just dig themselves a deeper hole. And again, this is a case of where, I wouldn't have called for somebody's job and been like, yeah, they made a mistake, they made an off-color tweet, whatever. Okay, it happens. They apologize,
Everybody
whatever.
does that
but when
sometimes.
they come back and then they just keep like digging that ditch, I'm like, dude, like, you just like insulted most of America, and you're on like the most American flag-waving comic book out there. And then they cried when people, because G.I. Joe's supported mostly by pro-military people. Let's be honest. These guys probably grew up in the 70s and 80s, and during the Reagan era, a lot of them are military. They stopped buying the book, and this dude was like freaking out on Twitter. He was like, oh my God, they banned my book. They boycotted the book. I'm like, no, they didn't buy the book because you basically told them they were, they
didn't matter.
They didn't matter. And
that's just it. I mean, it's
they're not
intent.
going to support you.
And then it goes down to like the cultural appropriation and everything. It's intent, and intent matters. And if your intent, is to stir up crap, and if your intent is to, say as many nasty things thinking you're going to get more Twitter followers and all that stuff, you're a dick. I'm just saying.
And I don't care if you've got one or not. I mean, I have seen some comic book professionals out there who I cannot, like, their entire platform is basically mocking men, mocking male creators, and the whole purpose of doing that is to get more Twitter followers.
Well, then they had
that's what they're looking for.
You know what got me was they were having those after parties, and they had them for every group. Instead of you're all
is
creators.
That Emerald City? I think it was Emerald City.
We're all creators. We all work together. We're all fans.
Yeah.
Maybe have a fan group, a creator group, something like that. I can see that, like dividing up the fans from the creators and things like that.
Yeah.
But they were having, you only come to this event if you were trans. You only come to this event if you were, you were any other color but white. And everything else, and people said, where's the event for me? Well, we don't have one.
Yeah, basically the implication being like, well, the whole world is your event, and you don't deserve it.
And that's my thing. That's
you've had your time, dinosaur.
When you do things like that, you're telling the world you are everything you say you are against.
Yes.
And what makes me mad is people aren't allowed to call that out, because if you call that out, well, how dare you? You're privileged. Every day you have privilege. I'm like, where I'm sitting, there's privilege points being handed out, and it's not based on being white or straight.
And again, this is about revenge, not equality. If you wanted real equality, if you were actually an advocate of true equality, then everybody's equal. The playing field is equal for everybody.
There's representation of everybody.
There's
which
representation
is what I'm for.
of everybody. Realistic representation of everybody. And that's what I'm for too. Like, I think everybody should be allowed to make comics.
I think diversity is great. I think it's necessary.
It's necessary.
I think
it's
better stories happen when
right.
you have a collaboration with different kinds of people.
And yeah, I mean, historically, has the comic book industry been mostly straight white dudes? Yeah, it has. Does that need to change? Yeah, but you know what?
Yeah.
But bullying straight white creators just because they're straight white creators, you know,
or the ones that don't fall in line to keep their jobs.
Right. That's not the solution. That is not the solution to this. And it just creates, a lot, because you got to realize too, like the comic book audience, the comic book reading audience, we said before, the comic book industry wants a certain kind of readership. They want a more diverse readership. I don't think they've achieved that yet. I think their readership is still predominantly a bunch of middle-aged white dudes, and you're basically telling them to go piss off, and if they don't, then they get hit in the head with the ball.
I'm a woman.
Like, what the heck?
I'm a woman, and some of these books I wouldn't read because I'm like, what? What?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't read it, and I'm just like, I don't think it's just to be about your audience being men. I mean, I think it's just, they're catering to a very very niche audiences. Like, they're niching themselves out of existence.
And actually what I'm seeing from the mainstream publishers reminds me of the kind of stuff you used to see from the indie publishers.
Yes.
And then they're wondering why they're getting indie sales numbers. I'm like, because you're making... I mean, you're basically making books for hipsters, and hipsters aren't buying comic books.
Mass appeal, and that's what you need to do.
And occasionally they get a breakout hit or something, But I mean, for the most part, it's like you don't know your audience. You're making books for an audience.
They know the audience. They just don't want to acknowledge.
They don't care.
Audience. They want a new audience, but they don't know how to build that audience.
I think what they're hoping for is that, like, if they create enough of the kinds of comics that sort of drive away the existing comic book audience, that this new audience will come in and replace.
So that's not going to happen.
And because there was somebody who was out there spouting off something about the Chads and the Tanishas or something. It was they were basically talking about how publishers should be chasing dollars from this other demographic versus the existing demographic, which I do agree that they need to diversify. You need to hit more audiences, but like deliberately driving away the existing audience just because you can do it is
you
not...
want to keep your existing audience and expand.
Expansion,
like we did a thing about
yes,
a pie.
thank you.
There's only like a certain amount of pie. You have to expand. You have to expand the pie.
You need more people eating the pie. You need a bigger pie. You need more people who want to eat pie. So you basically have to keep...
all the pie eaters there.
Right. And with the comic shops going...
Find more.
With the comic shops going out of business, you can't afford to lose any more pie eaters. You need to keep the pie eaters you have happy while also going out and finding... more people to eat your pie.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there are comics about that.
If you say more people eat your pie, that is for me.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, and the thing is, they can probably do that, but they have it in their head that they can't appeal to new readers without offending the old ones. And that's not
it's
true.
An either or. It should not be an either or. It should be that, and this is, comes back to Jawbreakers too. Like, you can have that book on the shelf next to a Captain Marvel, and let the customer decide what they want to buy. Just because you're stocking Jawbreakers, it's not going to drive away the customers who aren't going to buy it anyway. It's for a certain demographic. It's for people who are fans of 90s comics, basically, which I hate to break it to you, is a big chunk of the comic book readership, because these guys,
the biggest chunk
they're like they're aging comic book fans who grew up reading in the 70s, 80s, 90s. That still pretty much makes up the bulk, I would say, the bulk of comic store sales. Graphic novels, that's a totally different thing, but we're not talking about that, really. We're talking about the comic shops. So, you have to keep that existing readership happy, and what they're doing is they're basically driving them away, and they're not replacing them.
They want to drive away. They said as much.
Yeah.
And we want the other readership. But there is, and the readership they want, traditionally, I mean, not everybody, of course, but a lot of them are younger.
Yes.
A lot, and we ran into this with our comic too. Our demographic, we were going with a younger audience. Well, the problem with younger audiences is they don't have money. So, I mean, they don't have money.
Right. You want, the reason Jawbreakers, now just over the weekend, it's at like $260,000. The reason it's making as much money as it is because it appeals to comic book readers who buy comic books, who have money to drop. Again, people in their 30s, 40s, they're going to have more money than somebody.
And some of these diehards will drop hundreds of dollars on a book like nothing, like a new book, like a special edition with like special covers and things,
and not even flinch. They won't even
down
flinch.
all kinds of money for it. I mean, my one friend collects original art. I mean, the one that we were talking about earlier, and he has no problem dropping a bunch of money on something.
I've seen it.
He can't stand what's going on right now.
People buy. I mean, they'll buy original pages, and they'll shell out $1,000. They'll pay established artists $1,000 to do a sketch, So these people have the money. They're the people who are actually, keeping the comic book industry as it is right now going.
And they're the majority of people that are, being affected by this whole Comicsgate thing.
Right.
They're the ones
they're
that
being
are
told
mostly
that,
on the side of the Comicsgate side.
Right. And they're being told that we don't really want your money anymore. We'd rather go for the money of these 22-year-old kids who are on Tumblr. So we're going to bring in some Tumblr artists, and we're going to mix it up. And basically we're thinking we're going to make webcomics, but we're going to print them, and people are going to buy them.
And we're going to bring the webcomic artists over who have no professional experience, no job experience, have no idea how to work in corporate America, and we're going to let them be in charge.
Yes, and that's kind of, and we'll do another podcast on webcomics versus print comics. We've been doing webcomics for a very long time.
Yeah, we're getting kind of mad about this.
We're not knocking webcomics at all.
We love webcomics.
We're just saying what the publishers are chasing after are the same people who read webcomics, but it's not the same thing. Webcomics don't cost anything.
Well, not
they're
just that.
Free.
The people they're picking up aren't people that have the large audiences.
No, they're picking up the people.
It's again like the publishers picking up people who don't sell and then giving them more book deals.
Right.
And it's like these are people that know somebody
Yep.
or are hitting these. Check they're this, check they're that. We can put them in and say, look, we're diverse. And but there's people that are legitimately the same and they're better.
Right, and they're also mixing up. The publishers are also mixing up social media followings with
Instagram. I have so many faces people
Instagram,
on
Tumblr. Okay, case in point, they're well, even beyond that, it's the kinds of followers you have. Okay, so you can have somebody with 100,000 Twitter followers that puts a comic book out there, and the comic book doesn't sell because they have 100,000. If they are real followers, they have 100,000 Twitter followers that just don't buy comics. They just follow this person because they like their politics or they like their funny cat videos or whatever, but they don't actually buy comic books. So the person puts a comic book out there and it fails miserably. I'm thinking of Hellcat. Hellcat, the creator, has a lot of followers, and the comic failed. You would think that many people that the comic would sell, but those people who follow that creator do not buy comics.
Yeah.
But then you compare it with these comic book YouTubers who have cultivated an audience of people who buy comics. So again, it's this is like marketing 101. You're better off having 10 paying customers than 1,000 freeloaders. Mm-hmm. And the reason that Diversity in Comics has been so successful and actually making money off of his followers is because he's cultivated a following of people who actually buy comics.
Well, he didn't call it. They actually were
comic buyers
before. They came to him because they got tired of being told that they weren't the audience that the comics wanted.
And this is the root of this is the root of the problem. This is the root of everything. Diversity in Comics and other comics YouTubers have picked up the audience that they have because they were giving paying comic book fans something they were not getting from the comic book industry anymore.
Right, and the people on the other side are angry because they think in some way that but they don't realize that it was the people that would have given them money if they hadn't driven them out.
Exactly. For all their complaints about Diversity in Comics and some of the other people who are doing comics, and they're like, oh, these people, they stirred up an angry mob and blah 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 blah. Angry mobs don't pop up overnight. Angry mobs are there. It takes people coming in and tapping into that and maybe mobilizing them, but the angry audience was there. Diversity in Comics and, again, other Comicsgate people, I keep using his as an example because he is the biggest one right now, but they have tapped into the disenfranchised comic book fandom, the people who feel like they got left behind in comics, the people who aren't buying your books. So they're giving them money because you're not giving them what they want.
Well, they don't. Well, that's what else are they going to spend their money on? The money they would normally spend on these books, they won't buy them anymore because they're not going to buy. Like, if I hate the color green, and the clothing line I love suddenly goes all green, I'm not going to buy my clothes from anymore. I'm going to go to the person who's selling green shirts. Yeah. And what they did was they basically threw everything out, and then there's nothing there for them to buy anymore. So they're like, I've got money and I like comics. What do I do? And look, he's got. And by the way, by buying from him, I can show them they need to bring green back. You know.
And again, not to get too political with it, but this is why a lot of Democrats were caught off guard when Donald Trump won, because they were so used to hearing other Democrats talk about, like, oh, Trump could never win, he could never win, he could never win. Surely there can't be enough people out there who would actually vote for him, giving his opinions, giving, you know, stuff he says, da 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 da. They'd never do that. Well, they cast their vote for Donald Trump because you know, they weren't getting it from Hillary. They weren't getting what they wanted to hear from Hillary. So even people who were Democrats, I've seen them jump the aisle because they were looking for, you know, stronger positions on like job creation, yada yada yada. Normally they would not have voted for Republican, but they did it because Hillary wasn't giving them what they wanted. The comic book industry has damaged itself, and now the fact that the comic book industry is attacking people like Diversity in Comics, they are in a way attacking the fans for supporting him, which is creating more of this huge bonfire. It's creating more support. Every time you attack him, and the fans take it personally, because the fans are like, hey, we like this guy, we're backing him because
his thing goes up.
Right. You're not giving us what we want anymore, so we're going over here. You have nobody to blame but yourselves. There were so many chances to fix this.
I think Marvel's catching on to that though, because that's why they're trying to restart things and bring it back around.
But I've heard that they're kind of going back to the same sort of, you know, books. I actually haven't checked out any of the rebooted Marvel books yet, but you know, it's yeah. I mean, people, you know, they will spend money if something they want to spend.
Right, but I'm saying they're making this whole thing about, you know, that's what I'm understanding. Like, they're making it about harassment. Oh, we're being harassed, and they're making it about, well, we're losing sales, and but it's not because our books suck and everything else. It's like, no, it's because you don't give them the audience that they're paying customers what
You've
they want.
taken their choice away.
You're
You're basically
mad,
forcing them to buy things they don't want.
And then you're using fear tactics to try to keep people from buying things they want, to make sure that they have to stay with you, but they don't want to stay with you. It's like the bad abusive ex that you have to get a restraining order for because he won't leave you. I don't want you, but I don't want anybody else to have you either.
Right.
So I'm going to stalk you and harass you and threaten you because I don't want you, but you're not allowed to date anybody else because I might need you again. You know, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing would have been to just, you know, listen, instead of mocking comic book fans' concerns, listen to their concerns and try to give them something they wanted.
You only had one or two people commenting. I can understand it. You can be like, okay, that could just be, you know, a blip. No
just a fluke thing, yeah.
But when you have as many as there are, and we're way off topic because the whole topic was supposed to be how do you determine which side's good and which side's bad? Because he's basically like, I wanted to tell him who he was working with, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we're just
well,
like,
no, this is all related because the reason, I mean, as far as good and bad, I mean, if you know, take it away, I don't even know if it matters anymore. It's basically the customers are putting their money where, you know, on products that they want to buy, and you know, the good guys, the bad guys, just kind of all. So,
but they don't. But and then I guess it does tie in because he doesn't like it, so he's trying to block it.
Right.
Because, you know, the crazy ex-boyfriend.
Yes.
You know, it's
exactly.
Like I don't want you people that might buy this book. But I'm going to make sure the book doesn't get published with this person, so they'll give them their money.
Yeah,
you know, it's kind of like that. Yeah,
it is, and
I guess it does tie in.
I don't know. So we're just sort of like ranting here, but yeah. So I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, just wherever you are in this whole comic book fiasco, just look at the behavior on both sides. Make your own judgment call. Don't listen to hearsay. Make sure
on either side.
On either side, make sure you get the facts. You know, and we're not telling you to believe one. We're just saying, just objectively, the reason that Diversity in Comics is as successful as he is because he's tapped into an audience of disenfranchised comic book fans who do buy comic books.
Right.
It really is. At the end of the day, it's that simple. The comic book industry has kind of insulted these people for the last several years, trying to chase this new audience that just never materialized.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's not even about, you know, all these things that they're making it about. It's about money, and it's about
money. It's about power. It's about money and who's got control of the industry. And really, I think, I mean, the reason that we're kind of jumping in now is this is going to change. Now, not just this instance, but there have been some other things that have gone on. It's going to change the direction of the comic book industry if it's going to survive. And I think you're going to see publishers are going to have to snap into it really quick and realize that they have to start giving the fans they have the things they want, while also expanding out to finding new audiences.
And of course, you can't 100% appease everyone.
No, you can't.
You can't. You know, and you can't make everybody happy. But you can go back to you can still hit diversity and still go back to the things people want. You know, I mean,
right.
It's just don't use it as your own personal platform. I think it's 90% of it. But
yeah, and my biggest takeaway from all of this is, like, if you know, just whatever you say on the internet, I mean, it's like out there, man. So you know, really choose your words carefully.
Yeah, sometimes I don't think they were thinking.
I think they think they're talking like amongst.
To be fair to that side too. Yeah. I'm like with you.
Chatting amongst friends.
They shouldn't have said it. It was a terrible thing to say. But I don't think that they were thinking it was going to turn into this big thing. But the way they handled it when it did, is what, I mean, things happen. People say things by mistake. People say things they didn't really mean. It's how you handle it afterwards, and how you handle it when people say, wait, let's talk about this, is how it's going to affect people's opinion of you.
So,
and
and so now we just have, screaming at each other and threats and, whatever. And it never, I mean, the comic book industry, let's face it, the last time the comic book industry was actually pretty healthy was before social media. I mean, I'm going to be honest.
A lot of people were more healthy
when the country was really healthy was before social media. So it's definitely added a lot of...
when you're actually telling me you think I'd be a happier person if I wasn't on social media last night.
Yes.
It's like...
Cam is like, she cannot handle... Like, you turn on Facebook and it's nothing but negative.
And I'm just getting to the point, like, I have an anxiety issue anyway. And unfortunately, our jobs all revolve around the internet. But I have an anxiety issue anyway, and it's like every day I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm just, and honestly, like, I keep asking myself, I'm like, I really have nothing in this. Why do I care so much? I think why I care so much is I'm a person that I can't stand to see people treated unfairly. I just can't stand it. I'm one of those people that, will stand up for people. And it's really hard with this because if you take away, like I said, all the sides, all the labels, and you just look at the actions and the words, it's just like, well, that's not what I expected.
It's like who are the actual villains, and that's who's the actual bad guy, and that's like, and I get tired of people saying they're the good guy when they're really the bad guy.
And not just on opinion. If you, like I said, you strip away, because if you're worried your opinion is going to taint which way you sway, take away anything that the labels, take away anything. Just look at the actions and the words, and the side that is acting in a bad way is the side that's the bad guy, and that's just
and where we're at, because we do. I mean, we had a podcast before we used to talk about webcomics and digital comics, and
we'll start talking about.
We'll start talking about that again.
People had some questions.
And it's just interesting to watch this, because this is really a major, like, a change. The comic book industry has to right now is like, it's critical that the comic book industry has to evolve. It's just going to be, which direction does it evolve into? Does it go up or does it burn out? And I think at this point, really, there's no place else to go but go up. It seems like the old guard just they don't want that to happen. Whether it's the Jawbreakers thing, or even webcomics, digital comics, some other things that it just seems like the comic book industry has been very slow to adapt to change. It's very resistant to change.
Yeah, we find that many
times. It demonizes people who want change. And we've seen this before. This is not the first time, like, everybody's like, oh my god, this is the comic book industry freaking out. The comic book industry has freaked out on multiple occasions.
Right, this is not new, people.
In the past. I mean, we talked about Image Comics. They freaked out with Image Comics. They freaked out over manga. They freaked out over webcomics. The comic book industry just, it doesn't take the initiative to adapt, and then it's blindsided by change, and it doesn't, as an industry, seem to have its finger on the pulse of what consumers actually want, and then it complains when the sales decline. And this has been going on for years. This is not a new thing. This has been a cycle that's, as long as I can remember, last like 20 years. Ever since the big crash in the 90s, the comic book industry is always lamenting, online digital comics are taking away from our comic shops. Manga's taking away from our comic shops. Comixology's cutting into our print sales. Like, they're
yeah, but they charge us the amount.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like,
but I'm saying, like,
more money,
and
honestly.
they just don't seem. The comic book industry needs to be more proactive rather than reactive. And I think just in general, the people in the comic.
I think they were thinking, and people were hoping, that this movement was a proactive movement. They were bringing people in from the internet and things like that, trying to get ahead of it. But they were way too late at that point. It wasn't even just that. It wasn't even just that. They were taking people, and I understand what they were trying to do.
Right.
But what they were trying to do and what it became were two different things. Like, they were trying to bring these people in, try to get some fresh blood, try to get some stuff jazzed up a bit so it appealed to more people. But instead, they let them have too much power.
Yes.
And with great power comes great responsibility. And when you let these people who aren't equipped for that power have the responsibility, it all just went to shit.
Yeah, their heads swelled, and it was That's
just what I'm noticing. They're so arrogant.
I don't think that because the comic book industry, I think, was used to dealing with professionals. So they're like, let's go out and hire some of these kids, and it's kind of the same situation they're running into with. You see these jokes about, like, people trying to hire millennials. Again, not to be ageist, but there is that
there's
mindset.
There's a lot of people who aren't like that.
No,
I will
that
say
is true, but
there are a lot that are not that way.
But you see, they
I don't want to bash everybody, because that's not fair.
Well, I'm not bashing. I'm just saying they're hiring people for professional positions that were not equipped to be.
It's like a tongue twister.
Professionals. They were not equipped to be professionals, and they're not behaving. They're not behaving like professionals online. It's just it's become a cluster. And
the people they're bringing in are people that like, you know, professionals can be arrogant too. I mean, we've met many, and I'm sure you guys have many arrogant professionals, but some of them are deservedly arrogant. Then you have people coming in and just like, they get a cookie and they're just like, or a biscuit, because people like the biscuit. They get a biscuit and they're just like, well, I'm the queen of the biscuits. I'm the biscuit queen.
And the next thing you know, that's what it says in their Twitter profile.
And the biscuits will now have my face on it.
Yep.
And they will be all about me, because I am the biscuit queen.
Yep.
And it's just like, and then it just all falls apart. But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
I know.
People need to like just chill out. But and they're expecting professionalism from people who have never had it demonstrated for them or never have had to be professional before.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because it's not like, I mean, it used to be more.
That don't make sense. You can tell me.
Well, no, working comics used to be. I mean, sometimes it was almost like an apprenticeship. Like you would kind of, work your way up, and it was like any other publishing.
You skip that now, and you
skip it. You go
right
from like
to a deal,
like Walmart into a publishing deal.
Like Walmart. Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Like you were like working at Walmart one day, next day you're on a high profile book or something because somebody found you on Tumblr.
Yeah,
and
it's
there
just
wasn't
any.
There was no.
But that sounds like you're some people from work at Walmart.
I'm not some people working from Walmart.
I've met people at Walmart that are much more professional.
Oh, that's true. No, what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying though. Like these people didn't actually.
They came from like something else, and then they have never had the whole. You have to be professional. You have to interface with people.
Right. Here's how professionals behave. We're going to lead by example. We're going to show you how professionals behave.
All the examples are gone.
And the examples are gone. Because a lot of the professionals, we said this before, I think they've moved on for other media. I think they've moved into movies. They moved into TV, like actual publishing. So, I don't know. Anyway, good guys, bad guys, make up your own mind. Just take the labels off.
Don't even listen to us.
Forget where the words and the actions are coming from. Forget where they're coming from. Just look at the words and the actions and make up your own mind as to who the heroes and the villains are in this
That was the
story.
whole point in this long ramble. It's like, who gets to decide who's the hero? It's all about perspective, who you decide who the hero is.
Right. So please subscribe to the channel. Again, we've done a lot, like 3 or 4 comic book videos. This is not going to be a channel that just talks about comic book industry stuff. We talk about it because we've worked in the industry and we're watching what's going on, and we just felt like we had to comment. But I'm not
a person that can't say anything.
But we are going to talk more about gaming, digital art, toy collecting, all kinds of different stuff. We do all kinds of stuff.
We're just like geeks.
Yeah, so it's just a general geek channel. Don't expect the daily rant about Comicsgate or whatever. The thing I want to stress too, and I've said this before, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to log off. But there are more people out there like us who feel.
I think they're majority.
I think people like us that are in the middle, then even if they're liberal, they identify as liberal, they are actually kind of looking at the diversity in comic situation and being like, yeah, it's about time somebody stood up to these bullies in the industry.
The friends we have left, so that a lot of them they will come and tell us.
We have many conversations.
The same way, but we can't say anything.
I cannot name names. But there are people in the industry because they're afraid to say anything or do anything, or afraid that they're going to get fired off.
They just want it to blow over and get done with, so they can be,
move on and just go back to making comics again. There are a lot of people out there like us in the industry right now who you might think are quote unquote SJW, who are not actually SJWs.
Right.
They are just, they're keeping their head down. They're biding their time.
I think on both sides, any extreme you'd see on either side are a very small minority.
Yeah.
No pun intended by the minority. But you know what I'm saying? They're like a small number. And I think that there's small numbers who have a bigger voice.
Right.
And some of these people, I'm like, how the heck do they have a voice at all? Because they don't do jack crap, or they do something so small.
They spend more time on Twitter than they do making comic books.
I know. I'm like, why are they a person that gets to decide? I still can't. Some of these people, I'm like, how? I don't get that. But anyway. I'm just saying, there's a lot more people, I think, in the middle, and a lot of people, like, they're afraid to say anything because they're like, I agree, I think it's wrong. I'm seeing all this hatred and hate speech and everything coming away from this one side. But if I say anything, I can't do that because then I'll be attacking these minority groups.
Yep.
And that. So you're put in a position where you're
there's no way to win.
There's no way to win. All the joy of comics.
There is no joy.
Is ruined.
That's what makes. Do you know why I'm saying something? Thank you so much for ruining something I loved. You ruined it. You've made comics a miserable freaking place.
People behaving badly.
Right.
We'll clarify.
Because of the drama, because of these bullies, because of just all this crap. Comics is an absolutely miserable, toxic minefield. Okay?
And it was something that was so awesome and amazing and inspiring.
10 years ago, like, the comic book industry was very tight-knit. Like, everybody.
Which is always a good thing. I mean,
no, but I think it leads to some, and that's why all the ideas and everything are homogenous.
The nepotism's so bad. But anyway.
Like, these people, you knew they had your back, and now you're just like, how long until I get knifed in the back?
Yeah, well, not talking about that. I'm just talking about, you fall in love with the book or like a series or characters, and you're like, this is amazing. I can't wait till next month. I can't wait to get a new book, and you're so into it. And it's like, for me, like, I wasn't really into comics, but I was into books and reading. Like, I mean, I read Star Wars books like you wouldn't believe, and I couldn't wait for the next one. It was like all I wanted to do. And if that had turned toxic, well, Star Wars is turning toxic, so that's another story. But, it would be heartbreaking, and it kind of is, because now I'm sad. Damn it, Star Wars!
But it is. Like, I mean, I think the thing that makes me sad.
You know what I'm saying.
It took something you love, and it used to be an escape from reality, and it's become even more real because, like, the comic
reality never ends.
No, like the comic book scene right now is the most drama-filled, tense. Comics Twitter is a dumpster fire. I don't even like following 90% because it's just like constant.
I'm afraid to go on Twitter.
Politics. Constant politics.
Twitter's really bad. I'm always afraid to turn it on because I'm like, oh my god, what am I gonna run into?
It's just like screams at you. It's like you turn on Comics Twitter and it's like the letter from Harry Potter from Ron's mom that like screams at you. Like you turn on Twitter and the bird comes out of the screen in 3D and just starts screaming at you and calling you an ist, a racist, misogynist, homophobic pig. I hate you. Ah! And then self-destructs. And
only to regenerate in 2 minutes later.
Regenerates. Then it starts a new account, a different name, and it starts all over again.
That was a good one, huh?
But yeah, so that's why we're saying something now, because it's like I would love to see the comic book industry return to a place where it was actually
it's just actually being fun.
Into being fun, a fun hobby, and it's not now. It really isn't.
That people were excited to be there. They were legitimately happy to have fans. The fans mattered. The work mattered. And it wasn't just a platform to promote personal agendas and the personal, just the person.
Yeah, everybody's welcome, but you know what? Everybody's welcome.
That's it. I mean, I really, really love diversity and equality and things like that. I think it's great. I think it would make a much better industry if it was real and true, not, justice and revenge. Justice and revenge.
Oh, God. Okay, so good guys, bad guys. Take off the labels, make up your own mind as who the good guys and the bad guys are.
That was kind of the point, but it kind of went all over the place.
We did, but there's a lot to it.
We do this a lot.
Okay, subscribe if you like the content. Like I said, it's not always going to be ranting about comics. We do other kinds of things. Well, yeah, because it's like the daily drama.
We are going to do some webcomic videos and some things about other things like, the awards.
Yeah,
I'm making air quotes right now.
Gaming videos, digital art videos. We're going to start doing some toy reviews, I think, on here. In a little bit, but yeah, so it's a general geek channel, not a comics hate channel. We just felt like we had to say something. So, all right, are we logging off?
I think so.
And I'm not going to ruin Infinity War for you again.
You already did.
I already did, and I'm so sorry about that.
Sorry.
Okay.
So you won't say anything about Solo.
It's happening. So,
there you go.
I guess.
All right.
Bye.